In our last video, we had the official introduction to the Tandy 1000 and the Tandy 1000 series. Unfortunately, we ran out of time to talk about the HX and the TL models, so today we're going to do that on Vintage Geek. In our initial video of the Tandy 1000, we got to cover a lot of the capabilities of the system and the original Tandy 1000/A model, which we got to spend some time with and play a couple of games with. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, so today we'd like to cover two other models in the Tandy 1000 series, the Tandy 1000 HX and the Tandy 1000 TL. We're going to start with the Tandy 1000 HX today. Now, they made two models that were like this, that are kind of the all-in-one unit with the keyboard and everything built into one chassis. The HX and the EX. We don't have an EX. The difference between the EX and the HX is that the EX had a 5¼ floppy drive that was actually mounted into the side of the case over here, whereas the HX has two drive bays for the 3.5" 720K drives. That's basically the only difference between those two models. Now, comparing this to the original Tandy 1000 model, in addition to it being an all-in-one unit, it also has more memory by default, so this one shipped minimum with 256K of RAM. It also came with a really unique feature of having the disk operating system built onto the ROM, so you didn't have to boot this from a DOS disk apparently. The keyboard and everything design-wise is identical to the Tandy 1000 keyboard, it just happens to be built in to the physical chassis. All the layout of the keys is exactly the same. The F keys are in the same place. You still have these kind of indented areas above them, which I assume is where you could put some legends for different software programs to tell you what those function keys were for, which is kind of handy. Keys feel identical to the other one, albeit this one is much cleaner than our Tandy 1000 example. You've got your three indicators for caps lock, num lock, and power over here on the right hand side, and you've got badging here on the front. In this particular model, because it doesn't have room for standard 8-bit ISA slots, it has what they call plus slots, which I guess you had to have some kind of an adapter card or assembly in order to use these, but there's a removable panel on the top that you kind of push and slide back. And inside of here is actually a connector, and that connector, as far as I understand, goes to some kind of either ribbon cable assembly or some kind of backplane that would allow you to put physical devices in here. There's kind of 3 plastic slots in the back where these add-on cards could be put in. This obviously has a power supply built into it as well, and it's using a lot less real estate overall for the same basic computer, so it probably generates a little bit more heat. It does have a cooling fan in the back, has a nice feel to it. It's heavy, but it's easy to move around. You could certainly move this around your house pretty easily, and the fact that you could connect it to a television made it a really likely successor to a color computer in someone's house. The HX model of the Tandy 1000 actually had the 8088-2 processor. That was capable of running at 4.77 megahertz or approximately 7 megahertz, so it had the second speed option in it. It also has the 2 joystick ports, as did the original Tandy 1000. Those were compatible with the earlier color computer design, so if you had any of the old color computer joysticks or even the color computer mouse, you could use those with the Tandy 1000, which was a great compatibility factor as well. The only thing port-wise that the HX model did not have that the Tandy 1000 base model did have is it does not have an audio output port. It just has the video output port. I assume there's a speaker internally, and maybe they just didn't intend for you to be able to use that with an external monitor. Everything else port-wise is about the same. The connectors for the printer and some of the other peripherals are a proprietary connector, and I'm not sure what would be compatible with those. We don't really need them because it's an all-in-one unit and it has everything we need to do some testing today. So for the Tandy 1000 HX model, wanted to pick a game that would use the full 256K that this particular HX has to offer. Presumed Guilty, the espionage crime of the century, and you are the prime suspect. You meaning me. And apparently I'm going to have to prove myself innocent in order to win this game. So it seemed kind of interesting. It's by a company called Cosme, and it's from 1989. I've never played this game before. I'm going to try to just play this out of the box without even reading the manual, so at least we can get a look at what the Tandy 1000 HX can do. You've got quite the cast of characters here. I thought Tom Collins was a drink. Welcome to the computer-operated policing network. Though a good deal is too strange to be believed, nothing is too strange to have happened. All right, send, receive, or review messages to or from CopNet. My application has been approved and accepted. This was the easiest job interview I've ever gone on. As Managing Director of CopNet, part of my job is to help new CopNet investigators in any way that I can. Feel free to call on me at any time. Stand by for your first assignment. Well, 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 so what do we have here? Something called a vintage that wants to be an investigator, huh? I've been waiting for something just like you, Geek, to come online. Don't you feel privileged to be selected out of all those millions of CopNet recruits? I shall refer to myself as the Falcon. You don't know me, and you never will if I can prevent it, and I can prevent it. But I know you, Vintage, and you fit very nicely into my plans. Life is going to get very complicated for you in the near future. It will be most enjoyable to watch you struggle. This honestly sounds like a very threatening email. I feel like someone ought to call HR on this person. What is my plan? I will tell you this much. CopNet is in my way. I cannot afford such a powerful and efficient machine to exist and ruin my operations. That's where you fit in, Vintage. I'm about to frame you for a crime. There is no need to adjust your set. I control the horizontal, I control the vertical, I control CopNet, and I will control your destiny, the Falcon. The level of threat of this particular communication far exceeds the name, the Falcon. I'm already entertained. Newsflash. Press F1. Raymond Lamont, 37-year-old director of the top-secret Lawrence Livermore SDI research project, New Wave, was killed last night in an auto accident. Let's look at photographic evidence. Auto accident scene. Let's take a look. Well, I already see the problem. There's some kind of an alien being coming out of the front of this car. That's got to be the issue. Okay, here's the accident report. 1991 Chevrolet collision with stationary object. Paradise Lane, Alexandria, Virginia. No skid marks, one occupant, pronounced dead at the scene. Raymond Lamont. The zoom-in feature didn't seem to work for some reason. Investigation reveals lipstick stain on shirt collar of Ray Lamont. Sounds spicy. It seems like a lot of information on Mr. Lamont. It is interesting that it says he was recruited by Bell Laboratories in New Jersey to work on laser communications development. That's what he looks like. What a great image. Well, that's an interesting piece of information. A prosecutor armed with a CopNet indictment is going to get a conviction 99.9% of the time. It's a pretty high rate there. You know, I knew at some point in this game there was going to be a reference to 1984, and it's finally happened, calling this a computerized dictatorship, or CopNet spells tyranny, so it seems like there's a lot of depth here. This game actually does look like it would be fun to play through and find out, you know, all the different tricks to prove yourself innocent in the whole situation. It does show some really interesting things about the system. It loads well, it plays well, it's compatible with different graphics modes. You can see that happening when it goes to the different photographic evidence versus the kind of text-based database type things. It seems like it's playing as it was intended to play on this Tandy 1000, even though it's a PC game. I'm anxious to get to try this one again sometime because I feel like it could be fun to give it a full playthrough. We have here the Tandy 1000 Model TL. This was a later model in the series and actually features an 8286 processor running at a full 8 megahertz. It also came base with 640K of RAM, so now we're talking about a lot bigger capability for software and compatible applications to run on it. You've got room in this for actually 2 of the 3.5-inch drives on the front, and this one's got the dummy plate for the drive on the left, and it has a 3.5-inch drive installed. It also has a slot for the 5.25-inch half-height drive as well, so you could potentially have a mix and match of 3.5-inch drives and 5.25, or maybe you could have a 3.5-inch hard drive in this slot as well. Taking a look at the inside of this Tandy 1000 TL, it's still a very basic design, lots of room inside for peripherals and accessories. You actually have 5 of the 8-bit ISA slots in this particular model, so there's more room for expansion. And I believe this was compatible with most of the hard drive cards available at the time from Tandy, so you could equip this with a hard drive with one of those types. The additional drive bay for the another 3.5-inch drive that you could use for this. It's got the connectors built in already for that, as well as a connector for the 5.25-inch drive if you were going to use this lower drive slot here. Power supply looks fairly standard. It's a package unit in the back of the case. You've got a CMOS battery in this particular Tandy 1000, so it was able to actually retain clock settings and real-time clock and so forth. It actually has a volume control on the front for the sound and the inbuilt speaker, and it has audio jacks, so you could plug in a microphone and an external speaker to the system as well. Now it does have a monitor output, which is going to be compatible with the CM5 or any CGA type monitor. Printer port, which is a proprietary edge connector, just like in the original original Tandy 1000. You have a serial port, which is new for this model, so you could actually use a serial mouse or other devices that were not necessarily Tandy specific. And you've got your joystick ports, just like the other models, standard compatible with the Tandy 1000 and the color computer line, as well as the keyboard port, which is now on the back. You've got your standard power connector and cooling fan. One machine I didn't want to leave out today is the Panasonic Business Partner 1650. When I saw it the first time, I thought, that looks an awful lot like a Tandy 1000 TL. And sure enough, when you put them side by side, they are almost identical. There's a few differences. If you can see, there's actually some slots. These kind of lines across the front are all the way up on the Tandy 1000 TL. Panasonic model also has the 2 floppy drives, and it doesn't look like these floppy drives are actually changeable. Like if you didn't have a second floppy drive, it's not like this one where there's a kind of a dummy cover on it. This one also is missing a few of the components that the Tandy has, so it doesn't have the volume control on the front and it doesn't have the reset button on the front. After taking the cover off of the Panasonic model, it appears that this might actually be a Tandy 1000 SL2. It looks like it has the 8086 processor in it, which is different than the 8286 that's in the TL that we were looking at earlier. It also has a smaller motherboard size overall. It does not have a CMOS battery, and it has 384K of RAM, which would be the SL2 type configuration. It has the 2 3.5-inch floppy drives and availability for a 5.25. It has a physical parallel port on the back rather than that proprietary Tandy printer connector. But other than that, it definitely is a Tandy device. There's a Tandy sticker very plainly seen on the motherboard, and clearly Tandy was using Panasonic to resell more of their PCs, which is kind of interesting. So I thought maybe to test the capabilities of the Tandy 1000 Model TL with its full 640K of RAM, we could try a little bit more taxing game. So I got out our boxed copy of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It has action, danger, excitement, and stuff like that, according to the back of the box. This one actually is going to make use of all of the power of this Tandy, so let's give this a try. Buena Vista Software presents a silent software production of... Oh, the lead-up's killing me here, guys. Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Looks like we got some credits here. Gonna go ahead and skip past that. Get right into the gameplay. Hollywood 1947. Looks like we got 3 different locations. Maroon Cartoons, Ink and Paint Club, and the Gag Factory. All right, I think we're gonna use the arrow keys for that. Oh. Forgot how to jump. We'll get the hang of it here in a second. All right, so need to jump over the actual craters, not just try to stilt over them. And now we're getting the hang of it. Yeah, I'll jump on that trolley car. Oh. A lot of jumping in this cab. Oh. Oh no, I lost. I don't believe it. I won't believe it. I shan't believe it. Let's try this again. Hoping now that the controls are a little bit better known, I can get through this a little bit quicker without dying. Doing the slow jump over this guy. All right, jumping over the trolley now, come on. At least you don't die when you actually hit the cars. Gives you another chance. Hey, I think I made it. The pogo stick has blank grip handlebars. I think this is where our copy protection comes into play. They give you this paper manual, which is the Gag Factory catalog. Actually looks like this is a copy. This may have been pirated software originally, I'm not sure. But let's see if we can find this. Hang on to our easy grip handlebars as you ricochet into the stratosphere. E-Z. All right, our copy protection worked. Now we're going into the loading zone. Looks like we're in the Ink and Paint Club now, running around tables. Apparently I must have picked up something I shouldn't have, maybe a drink. I love the animation on Roger on this, it's great. Accidentally picked up a drink again. Ah. I got kicked out of the club. Geez, Raj, that was pitiful. If you expect to save Toontown, you'd better get your act together and get to the Gag Factory pronto. I'm not really sure if I was just supposed to pick up all the papers on the tables or what the actual objective was there, but I clearly failed at it. Uh-oh, Doom's got Jessica inside the factory. If I were you, I'd hurry up. I don't think she has much time. Oh, look at this, like a little platforming game. Uh-oh, it's the dip. Oops, I definitely just walked right into the dip. So we can go to the different levels. Oops. Oh, there's like way more to this. Okay. Thought it was just the one screen. Must be some kind of a Oh, that's like a punch thing, okay. So do I keep it if I go over here? Great. Oh, I see. So you can scroll through the different items with the arrow keys. Oops. Oh no. I got so far, but did not end up winning in the Gag Factory. Overall, I have to say that Roger Rabbit was a lot of fun. This really brought back a lot of memories for me, of course, of the movie and the game. I think the Nintendo game was very similar. It definitely has a lot of playability, and I would be lying to you if I didn't say I was going to go back and try this again at some point, because it looks like there's some other cool things that could happen if you actually make it past the Gag Factory. Well, I've had a lot of fun playing with our various Tandy 1000 models here in the Vintage Geek Museum. Hopefully you've enjoyed it as well. It is Septandy, so this is kind of our tribute to that, a kickoff to the Septandy month, if you will. We've got more videos coming up, and we're going to do a little bit more Tandy probably this month as well. Help us support the channel here at Vintage Geek by liking and subscribing. Ding that bell, enable all notifications. It's going to help us out a lot. The other thing that would be great to do if you'd like to support the channel is get some of our great merch. You may have noticed this Vintage Geek coffee cup that we have here. You can get these on the merch store. You can find the link in the description. We also have tons of great t-shirt designs. We have most of the brands that we carry here on Vintage Geek represented in some way, shape, or form, and we're adding some all the time. I want to thank you again for watching today. I'm Aaron, and this has been Vintage Geek.